Forward with the theme Keeping the Customer First, Re-engineering the Digital Organization to Better Serve Your Customers. This is the first panel discussion of the Marketing Excellence track that's happening right now. We'll move into the tech track and the Marketing Excellence track moving simultaneously a little later in the day. But right now, to moderate this panel, I welcome someone who's a key member of the leadership team at Dentsu International South Asia. He spearheads a center of excellence devoted to an outcome-driven model of business partnerships, oversees a spectrum of creative agencies, is the chief steward of the Dentsu brand in India and Sri Lanka, and drives a culture of effectiveness that delivers unmatched results for clients. We have with us Group Executive and Strategy Officer, Dentsu International South Asia. Please put your hands together and make sure that it's loud. Mr. Narayan Devanathan joins us. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Kesha.
It's going to be a fantastic panel that we're looking forward to. So I'm going to welcome all our panelists to join us. Please put your hands together as we welcome right now one of the most recognized thought leaders in IT, service management, and customer experience, the CEO, Clifton Butterfield, LLC, Mr. Roy Atkinson. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for your presence on our panel today. Please put your hands together as we now welcome global customer experience design and innovation leader, consultant, author, and speaker creating world-class customer loyalty. We welcome founder the Customer Lab, Mr. Mike Kendall. Welcome everybody. We invite our panelists to join us because I can see you all visually and all our participants can do that as well. And we move on as we welcome someone who is an internationally recognized customer experience expert, journey mapper, author, speaker, and entrepreneur, founder, CEO, and journey mapper in chief at Heart of the Customer. Please welcome Mr. Jim Tincher. Welcome, sir. Joining our esteemed panelists, we welcome someone who is a digital engagement evangelist with extensive experience across banking, financial services, etc., EVP and Head Customer Services, SBI Card and Payment Services Limited. Mr. Monish Vora joins us. Welcome, sir. Thank you for your presence. Joining us right now, we welcome someone who brings with her 19 years of customer experience and service delivery experience across retail, telecom, e-commerce industries. We have with us Chief Customer Experience and Service Delivery, Hometown Future Group. Make it loud. Put your hands together for Miss Vaishali Thakkar. Thank you for joining us. Up next, we welcome someone who over the last 20 years has held a number of leadership positions in enterprise, software, internet, and private equity organizations. He is a thought leader, and we invite him to join us on screen right now. Chief Customer Officer, CleverTap, Mr. Abhishek Gupta. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And finally, we welcome someone who has over 23 years of experience across apparel, retail, telecom, and consumer durable industries with a successful track record of building strong, profitable businesses and much more. Please welcome the CEO of CDO Future Fashion Private Limited, Mr. Satyan Momaya. Welcome to all our panelists. I've been applauding. I could see that you all were as well. And we hand over right now to our moderator to take this panel forward. Thank you very much for your presence here this afternoon.
Kesha, thank you so much. Can I ask you to stay on? I don't think I can match your energy.
Thank you very much, sir. Compliment at the start feels good.
Thank you so much, and a warm welcome to everybody on the panel here. And to everybody who's tuned in for this panel, I can promise you two types of disruptions this afternoon. One, I'm pretty sure there will be technical glitches and disruptions, so please bear with us as we go through this. That's the digital transformation I think the world needs before anything else. Hopefully we'll get there one of these days soon. The second one, I think the one that I'm really keenly looking forward to is the thinking and the perspectives that each of the really experienced and may I say wise panelists here are going to put up for our insight over here. And there was one particular suggestion that I've taken to heart here from one of the panelists, and that's probably the only rule I'm going to put down here. We're not going to arrive at any consensus. We're going to be a bunch of rabble rousers. We're going to disagree with each other. We've also figured out when we've argued enough on this panel, we'll take it outside and beat each other to pulp. But that's an agenda for another day. Right? But I'm super happy to be here and excited to hear perspectives from every one of you over here. Let me jump straight in without wasting any time, because I think I'd rather hear from you and see how this conversation takes its course. I want to touch upon something that actually took LinkedIn by storm for about 15 seconds in August 2020, which is the story of the Choluteca Bridge in Honduras. If you remember, there was this story of how the bridge was built in 1996 and Hurricane Mitch altered the course of the river so that the river no longer flowed under the bridge. And so the bridge was rendered useless and no longer served the purpose that it did. But the funny point for me was we didn't remember that story until the pandemic hit. And everybody was like, you know what? You don't need to be stuck to your course because things change. And so you need to be repurposing what you stand for. And what I thought was hindsight is such an easy thing to go back to, right? I mean, it's easy to take a lesson from something that happened, 25 years back, but it was there for us in plain sight as a lesson, but we didn't take it. Which brings me to the fundamental question I want to start with each of you over here. The topic at hand is about re-engineering the digital organization. And I want to challenge that. I mean, does the organization, digital or analog, need to be re-engineered in the first place? And if so, why? Because ultimately the purpose we are looking to serve is to keep the customer first. So actually, do we need to re-engineer the digital organization? So I'll open it up. May I ask Abhishek Gupta to jump in first, and then we can take it from there?
Sure, Narayan. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's an excellent question to start with, Narayan, because you said it yourself, which is putting the customer first. So when we think about digital organizations, it's really about the customer, the ability to serve the customer, the ability to offer them product and services which truly meet the need. And there are a couple of interesting things if you look at some of the recent stats. One is 89% of the companies today, they are competing on the basis of customer experience compared to some 36% companies in 2010, 10 years ago. And very interestingly, so now you see that companies are competing on customer experience. And the second fact that shows up is 80% of the companies believe they're providing superior customer service, superior customer experience. However, customers, on the other hand, only 8% of them feel that they are being served in the best possible manner. So we're seeing this irony here, where companies are saying something and customers are feeling something else. So what I've seen is, in reality, the truth of the matter is the front office in companies that serves the customers today is broken. It isn't what it needs to be. And there are primarily three areas where it's broken. The first one is the data is disjointed. You've got customer service data in one part, the CRM data in another, supply chain data in third. And like underneath that, there are like disparate data sources that exist. So there is no single view of the customer in most cases, and it's a very challenging problem to solve. The second is the teams are siloed. I'll give you an example. When an advertising person spends money in terms of presenting an ad to a customer, do they really check their customer service database to see if they should truly be presenting an ad or not? Or is it really a waste of money in that case? So the teams are siloed. And the third is, in a lot of cases, the technology that is being used today is unintelligent. There is a huge amount of technical debt companies are carrying because they're committed to a certain course of action, and they have to kind of just play it out. So fundamentally, when you look at all of those three problems that exist today and the gap that exists between what companies feel and what the customers feel, I do believe that there is a need to re-engineer the organizations. And, sometimes we feel that oh, let's do digital. It isn't about digital or analog or anything else. It's about the world has changed. Fundamentally, today, the mediums that exist didn't existed before. The way customers consume products and services had changed. So we need to fundamentally rebuild the companies and use digital as the foundation of it.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm going to pass this on from here to Jim. I don't know, Jim, you were already raising your hand, but I was going to bounce this off of to you anyway. Absolutely love the fundamental question Jim has asked as the title of his book also, right? How hard is it to be a customer, right? And I'm hearing, Abhishek, you talk about data being disjointed, teams being siloed, and data and tech being unintelligent. But I'm trying to connect the dot from there to saying that 8% statistic that you talked about, right? So Jim, do we really need to re-engineer the organization?
Well, Abhishek is right, but for the wrong reasons. So let me go into that. So the reason that we're broken is because companies don't really want to create a better customer experience. They want customers to better like the experience they're already putting out there. I mean, that's where a lot of the work is. Let's communicate more, let's put it on there. And that's the reason 70% of digital initiatives fail, is that they haven't engaged the teams, haven't engaged their organizations, want to keep doing what they've already been doing, but like get customers to like it better. And they really haven't built through. I mean, you go to any organization, I have not yet met an organization that doesn't say customers are our first priority. Every company says that. And then you ask the executives the last time they talked to a customer, and you get crickets. And so organizations don't really want to create a customer experience, but there are a few that do. And they're leading this initiative. They're the ones that the customers actually enjoy. And so, yes, the organization needs to be recreated, because it's built over historically the approach that we're going to do things the way we do them, product centered. And now let's put a little shim on top of it to try to get customers to like it better. So that's, I think, where we're really broken. So yes, we need to re-engineer it, because we need to go back to the foundation and think about why we're doing it. Most digital initiatives are taking a broken process and digitizing it, which just gives you a broken digital process. And so yes, we absolutely need to go back at it, but it's because at our core, we don't really want to change. We want the customers to change, and that's where it's broken.
Jim, thanks. Vaishali, I think you have one of the hardest categories that you operate in, right? I mean, most digital enterprises, people take to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook to rant, but people come into your stores to rant also. So it is really hard for you to be customer-centric at all times and deliver delight. What do you think about the need to re-engineer the organization?
Yeah, taking the thought ahead, which is already shared, I would say the sole objective, here is to create value for all the stakeholders, like your internal users, your customers, and the end objective is to then give, excellence in the customer experience here. So, what is my experience has been that you need to build the bridge between the backend teams and the front end teams, basically. Okay, so when I talk about giving digital automation to the team, it has to be like, the information flow has to be seamless between both the team. So now there's a front end team who is, capturing data, who is referring certain information which we have digitally enabled and giving commitments. The same thing has to flow to the backend team, because they're the people who are then going to render services. So this was one of the challenges that we face, that, while we enable the team, we need to support them to ensure that, okay, what is committed is then delivered, and the delivery team is enabled and empowered. I would say that we are more into a high touch environment, our stores. Okay, so it's basically the product feel. Okay, so we deal into home products. So if somebody wants to buy a piece of furniture, it is a very high touch environment. The customers really want to feel the product and then purchase it. So it is always a human element which will always remain in the kind of business we are. So here, what goes important for us is like the front end team who is talking to the customer, or the other channels who are serving, like the contact center or the social media. They are enabled enough, and the information is available right at one screen to them. All the channels integrated correctly. So this is kind of run through what we had done, and we have done the implementation of digital initiatives in a staged way, where we have taken consensus of whatever is first delivered and then moved ahead. So it has been a long journey for us, and the customer behavior is changing, we are learning again, we are revisiting. And I think this process is a continuous process for everybody, for every organization.
Thank you, Vaishali. Roy, you've been inventing the future before Marty McFly and Dr. Emmett Brown even had the title on their posters. Are we stuck in the past? Do we need to reinvent the wheel? Where are you coming from?
Well, there's one thing I think that's been broken for a long time, and maybe it's always been broken, is organizations keep looking for the magic bullet, the one technology that's going to make everything better. Bad news, it doesn't exist. Digital transformation is transformation. That is a complete overhaul of thinking and the organization's internal behaviors, but for the digital age. The technology is the enabler of better workflows, better services, better customer experience if the organization does the work of rethinking and in many cases reinventing the way it deals with and provides for the customers, and then uses the appropriate technology to make that happen. That's the key. The transformation happens within the organization itself. The digital technology is what enables that to permeate the organization and be transferred to customers. Customers don't care about the technology you have. They do care that it provides a consistent, seamless experience. And maybe most of all, it makes their dealings with you require less effort, right? That's key, is less effort. Customers want to be able to do business with you easily, quickly, and consistently. And that's totally key.
I'm going to come back to that point about less effort, because I think that's critical. But let me jump to Satyan here for a minute. Satyan, you're in a business where as much as experience, the brand matters a lot, right? I mean, it's what pulls people in. But after that, the experience takes over. I mean, how hard has it been to deal with the realities, especially in a post-pandemic world for you?
So I think one, Narayan, just to understand basically what are the so first you've got to really come to the term that hybridization is the way. So if you look at post-pandemic, the way people are working from home, which was not acceptable about a year back. We've seen people working from home. We have seen people shopping online, picking up from stores. So hybridization is the reality, and I think internally we're finding ways to reach out to consumers. How do we reach out to consumers? How are the media habits are getting changed? So I think post-pandemic or even pre-pandemic, so much has changed in the industry, especially in the industry which I lead with, in apparel industry, fashion apparel. We had to really look at some changes to actually the mindset within the teams to really get to meeting consumer expectations or actually exceeding them. So for me, Narayan, hybridization is the new reality. It's going to stay there, and the quicker we get in tune with that and respond to getting closer to the consumer.
Thank you, Satyan. I mean, one of my least favorite words of 2020, I think, was phygital. I prefer hybridization, but we'll go down that road a little later. Mike, I want to actually pick up from a word that you have in the name of your company, which is the word lab, actually, not the word customer. And the world of the new economy, of the startup economy, has always been about experimentation and failing fast. Do you think in the process of re-engineering the digital organization, and first of all, do we need to do that? Do CX experts fail enough, experiment enough?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about transformation, a lot of times we forget that it's not just methods, but it's mindset. And to Abhishek's point about this technical debt, there's also a humility debt with a lot of companies, especially at the top levels, where we assume that we're right because we've been successful. We've been in this company for a number of years, this industry. We've made good decisions, but really the rules have changed, and that change just continues to accelerate even without the pandemic that was already happening. So this idea that we can base our future decisions on the past behaviors of consumers just doesn't work anymore. So this idea of rapidly experimenting, starting with the presumption that we're wrong until the testing and the execution proves that we're right. If everybody in the company can't answer 3 questions, what's important to the customer, how are we doing at that, and what are our priorities for improvement, then transformation may happen, but it may not be the right transformation. And I think the point being that you have to really just have a factory of experiments or a backlog of experiments that you're running. Even again, I worked with a company in Europe, a large bank last year, and we were constantly helping them rethink platform businesses and how does this bank become more like Airbnb. And they had 800 some odd experiments in the field, real time, with just hundreds of feedback loops. So great point that you bring out, that it's not really transformation unless we have that method, but we also have that mindset of humility, and we're constantly testing our assumptions.
Thank you, Mike. I love that phrase of the humility debt. But one of my other favorite phrases, which you kind of touched upon from this year, is that the future does not fit in the containers of the past. And I think, one of the companies that knows it best is the one that Monish currently leads in terms of the payment systems that he's driving. SBI, or the State Bank of India, is the oldest financial institution in the country, and it's been of the banker to the nation. But now the steps that SBI Card is doing in leading the future of payments and fintech, you don't expect that from a traditional company like SBI. But what are you facing, Monish, and how are you leading the way in re-engineering the digital organization?
Thanks, Narayan. You hit upon the core. The fact is, for any organization, leave aside banking, it's perform or perish. And when you're talking about performing or perishing, the only thing that you have is things are changing and things are evolving. The customer of yesterday is very different from the customer of today, and the customer of tomorrow is going to be even more different. And if you do not change, if you do not plan for the change, if you do not work for the change and anticipate the change, you're going to be left behind. So it's important that you don't try and figure out if there is something broken or not, because times are gone. You don't have to worry about what's happened in the past. What you really need to do is you need to have an organization which is agile, which is flexible, to take on things of the future. And any kind of a thing that you do today will take 3 months, 6 months, maybe 3 years to do. So what you're doing today is going to have an impact, not in the next 3 months, in the 6 months, but also you have to plan for the next 3 years. I have to see what my customer will be wanting 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. And that is where it's important that you start working backwards and you don't think about what you did in the past. I think the panel put it across very wisely. The fact is, whatever's happened is done and dusted. Now we are really looking at what the future holds, and the future holds an opportunity. The important point is, it's not about fixing what was wrong. It is about how do you capitalize on the opportunities. And opportunities are there for everybody to look at. It's just that, like they say, you have to be sure when the opportunity is knocking on the door, have you opened the door? Or do you even know that it's knocking on your door? And who would have imagined something like the app, an app of India would become the largest downloaded app in 13 days flat. It may have been transitioned because of certain extraneous factors, but the fact is that people have experienced it and people have moved forward. What does it mean for us? It means people are changing, people are evolving, people are changing the way we work, people are changing the way they learn, people are changing the way they play. Work from home, we've seen in the last 1 year, work from home has become a reality. It was kind of an esoteric, complex thought earlier, which everybody thought and some people toyed with it. It's a reality today. And people are now talking about how you're going to move it from 30% to 50%, and some organizations is 70%. And for a service organization, it is very important, because for me, My customer is everywhere, which means I have to service my customer from everywhere. I cannot be saying that I will service my customer only in this limited manner. And this was a great learning that we had in the last 6 months. The customer is looking for a solution. You provide him the solution to what he wants, and he will stick to you. Getting into complexities of customer experience, there are a lot of parameters there. But the simple thing is, when the customer is in need, are you there for the customer? If you're there for the customer when he needs you, the customer is going to stick with you. If you're not there when the customer needs you, you could do anything. You could be blasting him with all kinds of offers. You could be blasting him with the best kind of images. But when the road hits the rubber, that is when the customer really wants to know, are you there standing with him? When the customer swipes the card, when the customer is trying to make a payment online, is it going through? Is the customer able to transact? That is the moment of truth. And if in that moment of truth, you are with the customer, you're making the customer's life easy. You're making it easier for the customer to transact. The customer is there for you. So at the same time, the customer is also shopping around. And the customer has those other people who are bombarding him with other offers. So you will make sure that the agility with which you come up and the agility with which you service is important for you to hook on to the customer. And that is where it is important that the organizations realize this. The organizations realize the fact that it is no longer fixing processes as a process itself. It is about constantly evolving the process. You have to change the mindset. You say, I have to keep on changing things and I have to be one step ahead. I have to be ahead of the curve with the customer. I don't have to think about what is the customer wanting now. I have to think about what is the customer going to be wanting 2 years down the line, because he's experienced something elsewhere. The customer has experienced e-commerce. When the customer experiences e-commerce, the customer has seen a different life altogether. When the customer has seen the OTT platform, the customer is not going today to the formats that the customer was going earlier for entertainment. Online gaming and OTT have taken over from the traditional platforms. So when a customer is moving the platform, am I going along with the customer? Am I seeing that this is where my future also lies? And am I able to actually capitalize on that as an organization?
Thank you, Manish. I think that point about monogamy is an unnatural phenomenon in the natural world and in humanity also. I think if it wasn't for laws, we probably wouldn't be. And to expect it from customers, I think is a little foolish, probably. And I think you brought that out eloquently. I'm hearing diversity here, but I'm not hearing enough disagreement. Jim, you're shaking your head. Go ahead.
Well, Roy and Monish have actually perpetuated the biggest lie about customer experience, which is that easy experiences create loyalty. They don't. Easy experiences prevent disloyalty, which is different. The world's easiest experience in most economies is the water company. You turn on your water, you turn your faucet, water comes out. Can't get any easier than that. Who here, raise your hand if you have loyalty to your water company. Nobody does. Easy experiences prevent disloyalty. They keep your customers from leaving you, but nobody stays because the experience is easy. They stay because of an emotional connection. And we need to stop talking about easy experiences as creating loyalty, because it doesn't work.
Ooh, I'd love to jump on top of that one too, and maybe stir it up, mix it up, as you said, a little bit. But the way I try to get this across to the people I work with is this idea of a pyramid. And I think Ian this morning talked about the Maslow's hierarchy of employee experience. But if you think of the customer experience as a pyramid, it has to start with giving the customer what they want. So they've come to you for something, a product or service, or they have a problem, you should have a solution that meets that need or fixes that problem. That's entry stakes. Then the second level is really what we've just talked about, which is that ease of use or effortlessness or frictionlessness. You don't even get the right to get there if the product you have is wrong. So I think a lot of CX professionals don't even think about that. They just want to optimize what they have, but you've got to really understand, is your product serving the need, or is somebody else out there going to disrupt that? And then you get the right at the top to earn that emotional connection or joy, or what I'd call delight, that's where loyalty happens. You can have a good business with the bottom two parts of that pillar, but you're probably going to have somebody else that beats you, and you're not going to sustain that loyalty and the revenue growth that we all look for. So totally agree. And I've had my battles with different people. If you're in a call center, yeah, it has to be effortless and frictionless, but you also have the opportunity, like the US company Zappos, to do something beyond making it effortless and making it joyful. And that's hard. You can't do just joy without the other two. You can't go to a hospital for a surgery and have them operate on the wrong part of your body, but be really friendly. And when they do it, and you're not going to go back to that hospital just because they were friendly. So you've got to get all three of those elements of the what I'd call the delight pyramid.
I'm going to come back to that point about friction, but Roy, Monish, are you going to take this lying down?
Yeah, I think let me just try and put in the perspective here. Good that we got some amount of discussion heating up. I think the point that I was trying to make was not in terms of ease, but it was in terms of anticipation. You're right. In one sense, I agree. Making things easy is not going to make a difference. What is going to make a difference is anticipating what the customer wants. And that is very different from making it easy for him. I'll give you an example in the real world environment that I work in. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the fact that about 2 years ago, the payment industry went through a huge transformation with the demonetization. And we had digital platforms mushrooming up. And suddenly in the last 2 years, you found the digital share actually zooming up. And that is simply because we made things easier. There is something called a QR code. A QR code which has been used for the last 30 years on products for something else, suddenly found a different avatar altogether. The QR code became a mechanism to make a payment. Who would have thought about it, right? A QR code suddenly from being on a cereal box came to onto your mobile phone, and it made a different thing altogether. Somebody used this technology. It was a technology which was already there. The QR code is not a new technology. It was something which is already there. Somebody realized that you can use this technology and make sure that you make things easier for the customer. That went through a huge transformation in the last 2 years. Now, is the QR code going to perpetuate the next wave? Maybe not. The fact is, now we're talking about other proprietary information and other proprietary technologies which will take over. But the fact is, what happened 2 years ago, the next 2 years won't remain the same. You have to understand what is going to happen in the next 2 years. And that is where I think the point that Nayan made earlier. Are you experimenting enough? Fact is, are you looking forward in the future? Do you have the crystal ball? And here the crystal ball is not telling you the future. The crystal ball is going to give you options. And as a business, you have to make sure that you experiment with the options and you try and if you're lucky and if you are right on the dot, you choose the right option. You may end up making those mistakes. The lifespan of businesses is reducing. Gone are the days when there were businesses that lasted hundreds of years and centuries. The lifespan of business today is maybe a decade. Businesses transform. So we all heard about the photograph, the business of the analog camera giving away the digital camera. And now you don't even find a digital camera in the market, right? Only the experts go for SLRs. The rest of us are using our mobile phones only. So it's the leapfrog in technology that you need to look at, because it's not a need of the customer. Most of the times, the customers don't even know what they want because they don't realize what is available. I say technology is a solution looking for a problem. You've got so much technology around here, it is freeing up the time. The time that I free up from traveling from my work to my office every day, the 2 hours that I save every day by working from home, those 2 hours of my life, which is a good 30% of my entire waking life, is what I am now investing elsewhere. When I start investing these 2 hours away from office, what am I utilizing these 2 hours for? I'm using it for engagement. I'm using it for play. I'm using it to spend more time with my family. When I start spending more time with the family, where do I start spending? My spending habits will change. I do not spend that much on transport today. I don't need a car. Do I need a vehicle? I don't need a vehicle. I don't need a public transport because I'm not commuting that much. I'm moving from a public transport to a personal vehicle. Now, that may also be because of the pandemic and because of the social distancing and because of the fear which is there. But today, The car sales in the last 3 months have jumped through the roof purely because people want personal mobility. Could somebody have envisaged it? I'm sure in August, none of the car manufacturers even thought about it. And suddenly in September, they saw this boom and they actually went in and increased production for 3 months. Is it going to last? Is it going to be the internal combustion engine, or is it going to be the electronic vehicle which is going to take over? Who's going to punt and who's going to put their money on the electronic business? Everybody is putting their money into the electronic vehicle business. But I don't know, are you really going to have that big a market of an electric vehicle 3 years, 5 years down the line, when 50% of the population is going to be working from home, and all that you need a vehicle for is for the leisure? The type of vehicle that you would want will be widely different. You would need bigger vehicles. Today, you need a town car because you need to go from your office to your work and back. Tomorrow, you need a vehicle to take your family out for a weekend trip. It's going to be a different vehicle altogether. It's going to lie parked for 5 days in a week and work only 2 days in a week. Are we talking about a model of renting a vehicle? We've seen so many rental vehicle models come up. So I think the point is, do you have the crystal ball, and do you have the wisdom of choosing the crystal ball?
Thank you, Manish. I know Abhishek is chomping at the bit to say something, but I do want to give Roy the chance to rebut Jim.
Jim, I'm going to call you out on a straw man argument. You can't choose your water company. I think, at least in my case, the city did that for me, so I don't have a choice. So it's not a question of loyalty to the water company. But I will give you an example. I'm not completely tying ease with loyalty, right? That's not quite what I said at the beginning, but I'm going to give you an example. If you have ever tried to get a taxi cab at 2 a.m. in New York City versus taking your phone out and paging an Uber or a Lyft, you understand why people become users of things that are easy to use. Because catching a taxi cab at 2 a.m. in New York City is darn near impossible. When organizations make it difficult for people either to do business, to get what they want, to become acknowledged, to get service, to even get the product sometimes, to get information sometimes, then people are immediately looking for alternatives. So you will push people away from your company by making things difficult. You will stand a much better chance of pulling them in if you make it easy for them to do business with you.
Thank you, Roy. Abhishek, I'm going to make you wait just a little bit longer because Vaishali has politely raised her hand. I'm also hoping she's going to say all these men know nothing. Vaishali, go ahead.
So I got a lot of insights from what the fellow speakers just said about ease of use, about giving a frictionless experience, about anticipating what the customer wants. I would want to cover on the area which says that, how do you stand out from the competition? Okay, so today when I talk about digitalization, every other organization is digitally present and ready to serve the customer, engaging with the customer in a better way. So I would want to share my experience during the COVID times, earlier COVID times, where everybody was at home and the stores were shut. Okay, we saw suddenly there was a pent up demand for office furniture which is required in your home. Okay, so there was we got so many inquiries where the customers wanted a bookshelf, a study table, a chair, ergonomic chair and all. Whereas when you talk about the stocks, okay, this share of products was a minimal share. Customers did not want too huge products for their home office. So we saw sudden raise in the pent up demand, and then it was like a big challenge for us that if you get on these stocks, okay, you are able to serve this customer, you can get this share of the customer. I mean, you can engage your customer with yourself. Okay, if you don't do it, the customer has another options in the market or in your competition. So this was like an opportunity what we thought of, and we quickly got the local players. We did the quality checks and then introduced the project on our digital platforms. This is how we served this pent-up demand. And we also saw the customer wanted actually to see the product. So it was the 360-degree view that we offered to the customer. whereas few customers actually wanted to see the product sitting at their home. So we then introduced a feature called look at the product, take the demo of the product, and we actually did a physical video call to actually show the product. So this is how we have tried to engage with the customer, serve the customer better, and use our digital platforms to finally give a best experience to them.
Thank you, Vaishali. I've just been alerted that we may not have a lot of time remaining in the session. So I'm going to throw this open a little bit. Bring on your best disruptive thought as to what is absolutely nonsense in terms of the CX landscape currently, and what is a single thing you would ask to change at this point, right? I mean, we've heard all of these notions of the pandemic being the chief digital transformation officer, that does a lot of injustice to people like you who are actually enabling that transformation. On the other hand, we have the the quandary that organizations face in the looming cookieless future. And as of yesterday, I think Google also announced that they're not going to be tracking individual behavior on search, but instead they'll track segment-based behavior. What that means also is it's going to become more difficult to track customer journeys. But on the other hand, do you want to be stalking the customer at every step? And how do you, equalize that with providing delight, right? And so multiple questions that confront organizations, and as experts in tech, in consulting, in actually running organizations, you all bring multiple different perspectives. But what would you say is the one piece of nonsense that is abounding in the landscape right now that you would dearly love to change? Satyan, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Sorry, Abhishek, I'm keeping you waiting.
So Narayan, I think it's basically going digital for the being sake of going digital is really nonsense. So I think the consumer is smart enough to understand when they come into our stores, if you're going to have some stuff which is just for the sake of being digital. But I think I'm a firm believer that future, when it unfolds, it just doesn't unfold immediately. It unfolds evenly, and the time when you interview it at the starting, you as a company are better prepared. So I think so for us as an organization, even I joined the organization over 4 years back. We had a digital blueprint of what we would really like to really work on, what would be a couple of areas we would really like to focus on. We tested a couple of them. We put resources and investments behind them. The ones which we thought were successful, we really doubled it up. I think it's important to really understand what are you going to solve for, what are you going to help the consumer with, and eventually how does it help elevate the consumer experience, and then pick up those initiatives which you really want to do. Because just example, during the pandemic, we never wanted to bombard our consumers with SMSs on Shop Now. I think we had to empathize with the consumer on what he was going through. There was so much anxiety with the consumer. They were worried about their job. They were worried about their family. They were worried about their safety. We just did a simple thing of actually going and how can we emotionally build stronger bonds and put them through their journey with their first purchase, what they really love, and just took them through that and just left it at that. I think just think the intent was to build emotional connect, build deeper engagement rather than just looking at solving your problem. So I think for me, Narayan, digital for the sake of going digital doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you, Satyan. And I absolutely love how you reinforced it. I mean, I think Jim also said if you digitize a broken process, you'll end up with a digital broken process. But absolutely hear you. Thank you for that. Abhishek, you want to go next?
Yes, certainly. So I think the biggest nonsense when it comes to digital transformation is the way this phrase is used actually, the digital transformation phrase itself. Everyone talks about digital transformation and like if I'm moving my business to the cloud, that is digital transformation. If I bought a new application to tie two pieces of data together, that is digital transformation. And frankly, That's the biggest mistake the company is making, because here is the reality. All companies need to be digital. The customers are leaving a huge digital footprint all across, and companies are going to harness those footprints to provide individualized experiences to the customers. So like two people could be a part of the same cohort, but that does not necessarily mean that they have to be served in the same manner. All of us wants to be served as an individual. The good news is today, there is data available. So if you have to provide highly personalized, pertinent experience to a customer, you can totally do that. But do the companies have the mindset and capability to do that? I think that's what the mistake is, because we're thinking of digital transformation totally wrong. We need to fundamentally understand the fact that with the advent of internet and other technologies that came along with it, the future is just digital. Now, example being, let's say we talk about a brick and mortar store in e-commerce. We talk one is digital, one being non-digital. But the point is, when a customer walks into a store, a huge amount of digital experience can be provided. There can be devices that can provide them experience. There is enough amount of data that is available about that customer so that you can show them pertinent information. So no matter how the world shapes up, the fact remains there is data about the customer. Companies will need to harness it and make sure that they can provide great experience the way future will unfold.
Thank you, Abhishek. I mean, digital is just the medium. Don't focus on that. Focus on the transformation. Absolutely on point. Thank you. Mike, you want to go next?
Yeah, something came to mind that I said years ago, and I still think it's maybe more true than it was then, but every company is a software company, or if they don't know that yet, they may not be a company for very long, no matter what industry they're in. So I totally agree on that point. I do think, though, there's two ends to that. And one end is the empathy, which Ian talked about earlier this morning, which is we have to talk to customers at an emotional level. And it's uncomfortable, right? We don't want to have to see our customer crying in front of us or us get emotional. But it reminded me of a time I was working with about 16 C-suite level executives who hadn't been out and talked to customers very often. So we sent them all down for a couple hours to the call center to sit with an agent and just listen to calls. And the chief technical officer came back, and he was literally almost in tears because a woman, this is an insurance company, a woman had called in, had just been diagnosed with cancer, and she just needed to know, she needed some comfort, obviously, but she needed to know what was going to be covered because this could be catastrophic financially for her. And the rep was going through literally 15 different screens trying to give this customer an answer, and the screens were locking up and the rep wasn't able to get a clear answer. And the CTO had no idea that he had created an environment, not intentionally, but it was so difficult for the employee to take care of the customer, and so difficult on the other end for the customer as well. So that level of empathy drove a lot of change. But at the same time, I think there's this idea of anticipation and not waiting until the problem happens to try to solve it. But we have so many tools now that we can anticipate problems. I was working with a large bank, and they put together something that was essentially an anticipatory AI tool to look at what we call the happy path or the sad path for the customers. And we were able to tell, oh, they called the call center 4 times today. That's probably not a good thing. Or they got locked up on a screen on their mobile app, or those sorts of cues that we should know are bad things. We don't need to wait for a survey or for a complaint call. We can start to take action proactively at the individual customer level or at the cohort level based on that. So I think that empathy and that anticipatory use of data and technology in service to creating that delightful experience for the customer is really critical, and thinking like a software company and constantly experimenting.
I'm reaching here a little bit maybe, but the absolute nonsense you're calling out is a lack of empathy that stems from almost willful ignorance. To not know how your customer feels is a crime.
Yeah, or a lack of systematizing that,
Okay.
requirement that your C-suite has to listen to customer calls or make customer visits or do Zoom calls or something to get people across the organization to feel the pain customers are feeling and not be able to sleep at night because they haven't solved that problem.
Thank you, Mike. Vishali, you want to call out nonsense?
Yeah, I think organizations today have a lot of data with them, and it's important that they understand what the data is there and how the data is used for further communication. My point here is it is a sheer waste of our resources when we just bombard the customer with the information which the customer is not looking for, and when we are a bit on a sales mode. So companies often bombard customers with information which they are not wanting to, or offering loans and credit cards, and this kind of behavior often develops a negative emotion from the customer, and it is somehow taking the customer away from a brand. So data is something which has to be used consciously when we talk about anticipating, predicting what the customer is going to use next, and how has the customer responded to the previous campaign is what I think companies should look at, and then accordingly, plan their communication strategies.
Thank you, Vishali. I mean, I love this articulation of have data, build stock. That mindset needs to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Roy, I'm waiting to hear from you.
Okay. Going back to something Vishali just said, data, right? Companies think they're data-driven. Most companies are not data-driven. They're driven by what my friend Matthew calls the hippo, which is the highest paid person's opinion. Things stop when they get to the highest paid person, then comes a decision. It's not based on the data. So organizations have to be honest with themselves in a lot of ways. That's one way. Take count of that data and use what you already know. But the organization has to be honest with itself in another way too. We talk about engagement a lot. Every organization wants customer engagement. Well, okay. First thing is you have to have something worth engaging in. If it's a product or service that a customer buys once every 5 years, why are you emailing them every month? Why? You're not going to engage them unless you have some reason to connect with them. So come up with that innovation first, whether it's an additional product or service. If it's some other way to engage them, great, but make it worth their time. People have less and less time now, and we have to be respectful of that. Don't expect customers to exhaust their energy and their time engaging with you unless you really have something to offer. Make something valuable for them.
Thank you, Roy. Monish, I can't even imagine the pain that your associates go through, because I think your category is probably one of the most abused in terms of customer service and customer care, when actually what you're setting out to provide is delight. What nonsense would you call out in this entire process?
So I think the biggest hogwash in organizations is the fact that anybody in the organization thinks that customer, that the digital transformation is owned by somebody in the organization. I'm sorry, whether it's the CDO, whether it's the CIO, whether the CMO, or even the CEO, they have scanned that they can do. The only person who actually owns is the customer himself, because it's only the customer who himself decides and drives what he wants. And it's important, I think that is what I hear the panel also. It is important for somebody to listen to what is the customer is saying. Because unfortunately, what is happening is most of the organizations live with prejudices of past. So data and data analytics is usually post-mortem. The data that you're analyzing is something that you've done in the past. The customer has bought this, the customer has done this, the customer tends to do this. I'm sorry, I don't think it is relevant anymore. Unless you have a predictive element built into your data, which tells you what is the customer going to do. And that means it is not only your own data. You have to go out and you have to find corroborative data, and you have to build a model that tells you what to anticipate with the customer. And the only thing that you can do is ask themselves. I think sometimes we tend to take only the customer POC, which is how has been the interaction. We don't really go out to the customer. What did he really want? What was his real expectation out of the entire thing? And that's very important, because a product like ours, which is it's no touch feel, it's a very nebulous product. What does the customer want with a credit card? Does he really like the look and feel, the color on my credit card? Does he want a metal? Does he want a plastic? I'm sure he's not even bothered about what he's carrying in the wallet. It's about how easy is it for him to do a particular transaction. So what does the customer want? It is when a customer is not able to make a transaction, can somebody help him out? Can somebody make sure that the transaction goes through? And when the customer wants to buy something, can he probably put in a loan around it? Can he get something, what is the additional feature that he can bring about it? So the customer will gravitate and the customer will tell you what the customer wants, provided you listening to him. Unfortunately, we listen to the people inside the organization and we think we have the solutions. I'm sorry, we don't have solutions. We only have problems, because when there are 4 departments that come in together, what they'll tell you is how something can't be done. So tech will say it can't be done because the system doesn't let you do that, right? Finance will say, sorry, I don't have enough money. You tell me where to get the money and I'll let you do this. And then in the middle of it is, somebody like you said, somebody like me, who was getting beaten from both the ends. But the customer experience is the priority for us. But 10 out of 10 don't even know what customer experience is about.
Thank you, Manish. Jim, you've been...
Am I visible?
Your screen is frozen, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead if you're continuing to speak. I'm amazed that we made it this far without a glitch. Okay, Manish, I'm going to assume you'll come back, but I'm going to pass the mic to Jim now. But Jim, you've been the quietest, the most docile over here. Let me see if you can do some rabble rousing. Yeah.
Well, the biggest nonsense about digital transformation is thinking it's about digital transformation.
So I think I got hit by the tech.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Which one of us?
I think by the technical glitch that you were anticipating.
Yes. So were you done?
As usual, it's the customer that gets the right?
All right, I'll try again. So the biggest nonsense about digital transformation is that it's about digital transformation. McKinsey tells us that the primary reason 70% of digital transformations fail is because of employee resistance. There's a ton of analog work needed to make digital transformation work, but so many groups just think if you throw in some digital tools, hey, we'll be all better. No, it takes change management and all of customer experience. One of the most neglected parts of customer experience is to forget the fact that the CX needs to stand for change the experience, and that takes a ton of change management. That's what organizations are missing. They think that they throw in some tools, everybody will come, which is funny that 20 years ago, we did the same thing with websites. All these organizations threw up websites thinking, pets.com would be the new thing. It failed. We've forgotten that 20 years later, we're trying our new digital tools and we haven't learned the lessons.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we're out of time here, and I'm not going to waste any more time on an elaborate summary over here. But absolutely brilliant inputs, and I think I've gathered enough to put together a masterclass and pretend I'm the expert in the room over here. But again, I think I love the different perspectives you came from, and I'm glad we disagreed with each other. Monish, I love how you pushed back to Jim, and I'm glad we had this back and forth going. And Roy, thank you for putting Jim in his place again too. But no, on a more serious note, absolutely loved having you all over here, and hopefully you took out as much from from this as I have. So once again, individually, thank you, Vaishali, thank you, Munish, thank you, Satyen, thank you, Jim, thank you, Mike, thank you, Roy, thank you, Abhishek, and Keshav, back to you.
Wow, thank you. I think the sense of humor, the perfect technical glitch towards the end, and keeping with you saying that those are one of the definite expectations. Everybody bang on with the right kind of information. Thank you, everybody. And I can't agree more with you, sir, when you said that the kind of information that got put together, this could easily have been a masterclass with many speakers. It was phenomenal. So thank you very much. The ritual we've got going is everybody, we want that last bit of energy from you. I'm going to call out customer. I want you to say FEST. Even if you say first, that's good, because that's exactly what y'all were talking about, right? So unmute yourself, everybody. Unmute yourself. Let's have a little bit of 5 seconds fun right now towards the end. Okay, so when I say customer, you say FEST. Everybody thumbs up. Are you good? Are you good? And bring in your energy, bring in the hand actions, bring in your, just bring it in. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Customer.
Yes.
Customer.
Yes.
All right, thank you, our moderator. You were phenomenal. I think it was easy and relaxed and still high energy. I think you'll kind of got the perfect balance there. Each one of our panelists, thank you so much. There was banter and there was the right exchange. It was awesome. Thank you very much for your presence. We draw to a close here. Yes, we can definitely give ourselves a huge round of applause. You can't see the audience, but the applause is coming to you from each one of us. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us here today. And lots to take back. And as you close your cameras, get off the virtual stage, so to say, we thank you. We thank you for your time here. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Continue to be with us and follow the Customer Fest Show 2021. Thank you very much.